Hey out there, everybody. How you doing? How are you? Come on in. Have a seat. It's Sunday morning. We hope you're awake. We all have coffee. Hope you have coffee too. Come on in. Varian's not awake yet this morning. He kind of promised he would be, but that's okay. He can sleep in if he has to. Well, there's our official notification and a ding. Standards and Practices is online. Welcome to Indie Volt Radio. All you radio listeners out there, we are interrupting your morning music or afternoon music or evening music, depending upon where in the world you are, in order to talk about funny books. We're going to start a new program here. We're going to try one out on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, so it's early for all of us here in the States. And we're going to talk about funny books, not comic books as per se, as much as funny books. I have an opening. We're calling it the Sunday Funnies. I have an opening which we're going to run, and I will be right back on the other side of it. All right? So hang on. Here is the opening. There we go. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Sunday Funnies. Man, I wish I could knock this off here. Give me just a second there. There I am, but you don't want to really look at me all the time. We are here to talk about comics. We're here on the Sunday Funnies. We're going to talk about lighthearted comics, the fun part of comics, all of the fun, lighthearted aspects of comics that maybe you're not even aware of. But my name is Randy Zimmerman. I've been doing alternative and independent comics for quite a while. Long time. I'm looking here. Maybe we can... Nope, that won't work. Okay. I really don't want you to be staring at me this whole time. I have a face made for radio. But everybody, welcome aboard. We are here to talk about funny animal comics, underground comics, lighthearted comics. Just that, all those cool comics that you read, maybe that you read as a kid or that you read to your kids. New comics and old comics, ancient comics, dusty comics, comics that you'll find at your local retail shop when you go through and dig through those long boxes and you go, oh, well, that sounds like a weird comic. Let's pick this up. There have been entire eras of comics throughout the years that aren't necessarily your angst-written, realistic superhero comics. And those are the comics that we really want to talk about and focus on. We'll have creators from all aspects of comics here to talk about the different, more lighthearted things to do about comics. And man, I really wish I could shrink myself down so that you could see the background that I did. That'll give you a better perspective as to what we're doing. But I have a couple of guests in the green room already lined up. We have people that are looking forward to being on this show. That was a ding. Standards and Practices already. Varian ought to be waking up here any time to give us our international numbers. And no, that's just a notification that I am on the air. All right. So, again, we want to thank you for listening. We invite your input on this show. This is our first show of the Sunday Funnies early in the morning, so you're here right at the beginning. So you're going to see all of the stumbles and nitwittery that we can do as I learn the board. I have control of the board sometimes during Indie Volt, but Varian is usually the one that runs the show. So this time it's up to me, and we're going to run until we are out of breath, I guess. So I think that's it. I've got guests in the back. John, are you ready to come in? I know Daphne's ready to come in. Are you good, John? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. We have two guests in the green room already. The first one I promised would be here, and he is. This is John Celestri, who is doing John The Animator Comics.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. That's what I'm doing.
So why don't you tell our listening audience all about it?
Okay. Well, I've been a comic book artist an animator since the mid 70s. So I'm bringing what I know from animating Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special, the Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, Rock and Rule, and He-Man and She-Ra. I'm bringing all of that I know to my own line of comics, which is John the Animator Comics. And it's a line of, I've got 2 characters. Well, I've got 2 actual series, and I'm aiming everything at from 4 years old up to about 12 years old. And I break it down from 4 to 7, the ages 4 to 7, and for the Stuffy and Zoe series, which is about two bear siblings who have adventures by jumping into their toy box, magic toy box. And then I have from age group from 8 to 12 for Nikki Nardson, Mega Moose, who Nikki Nardson is a bullied 12-year-old who gets a magic feather from a wizard, who is also the janitor of the school that he goes to. And he, with that magic feather, he waves it and he turns into Mega Moose, which is a Minotaur type character who has all the powers of the animal kingdom. And it's very much wish fulfillment for both series. And again, it's something that I don't talk down to the readers, but I don't have any messages. It's just fun.
I'm sure you'll agree that the comics can be read and enjoyed by everybody.
Oh, yes.
But the age groups that you list there are the ideal age group for the reader? Or?
Well, those are what it is that there are certain things that kids really gravitate to during their time period as developing as human beings. And so I focus on stories aimed specifically at them. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't cross over, right. But they don't share the same universe. So therefore you aim certain stories at a level that that you think that they will be interested in. Paying toy boxes is something that kids play with pretty much up until a certain age, and then they want to start exploring. They're in school, so that's a whole nother universe.
Right.
So, but parents and adults, it's really all ages. And if you have an inner child, with you, you can accept that. You'll enjoy it.
Okay, great. And John, you've been animating since when?
1974.
So that's 40 years?
46 years.
46 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you have a long history with that, but not just that. You're also a writer.
Right. Yes. Right. I wrote crime fiction novels during the 90s with my wife. We co-authored and self-published some crime fiction novels basing on a couple of different series. One was a cozy type of a culinary mystery style series, and then we had one gangster novels, historical novels based on the Newport, Kentucky of the 1930s and 40s and 50s, which was the Las Vegas before Las Vegas. Yeah, cool. That's where you had all of your the characters that were part of what made Vegas. They developed. They had all of the nightclubs you had in Newport, Kentucky, which was right across from Cincinnati, which was a major radio hub.
Yeah.
Of the 30s and 40s, and then everybody using the trains and whatnot. Everybody'd be traveling through Central, the terminal in Cincinnati. So you had all of these, you had Benny Goodman, you had Cab Calloway, you had Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. They were all coming through Cincinnati and stopping off and performing at the nightclubs in Newport.
Sweet. And
they were run by the gangsters. So, so that's what we wrote.
So Vegas really wasn't a totally original idea by Bugsy.
Oh no, God, jeez, no. Yeah, his idea was to put it somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was his idea.
Yeah.
But no. All of the gangsters moved from Newport to, to Vegas after the Kefauver investigations, and things got too hot.
Yeah,
So
I'm a big fan of Michigan history. I live here around the Flint, Michigan area. And we used to have a big lumbering industry that literally started at the southern Michigan state line, and went all the way up through the states. And following that lumber industry was an entire group of people that built really quick vice houses with bordellos and gambling houses and anything that they could build in order to soak up the lumberjacks'
right.
paycheck.
But all entertainment was local.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So you're up in Cleveland. You had Mo Dallas and the Cleveland Syndicate, and those were the ones who owned Newport.
Okay.
So there you go. But it's not Sunday Funnies unless you bring in Dick Tracy.
But it is you. So,
yeah.
And I want folks to know that you're not just coming from an animation background. You have a writing background. You know what you're doing, and you're out to do it well. And you're going to start a Kickstarter campaign up for your comics, right?
Right. September 1st is when it goes officially on Indiegogo.
And what'll that be listed under?
It'll be John the Animator Comics.
And you have a preview page up now, right?
Yes, I do.
And you can find that under John the Animator Comics.
Yes, John the Animator Comics.
So anybody out there who's interested in John's work, run out to Indiegogo and pull up that preview page. There's a place there that they can leave their email address, right?
Yes.
And be notified of your campaign and any updates.
That's right. That's correct. They'll know exactly that. They'll be able to click on it and go and actually see the full campaign site when it goes live.
Sweet.
Yep.
That'll be great. And I should probably have prepped that up earlier so that we could go over to that page, and so that folks can see exactly what it looks like and what you're doing. I mean, our viewing audience. We want to welcome everybody in from Indie Volt Radio this morning. And let you know that we are doing a new show called the Sunday Funnies, where we're going to talk about the fun part of comics. The fun things about comics and the funny books that have been out there. I just hit John the Animator and nothing popped up. Let's try it again.
Well, there it is.
Do you have it up there already?
I see it. I see it on the third screen there. Big.
There we are. Oh, maybe Rob.
You can roll it up.
Rob already pulled it up. Probably Rob's in our background right now. Thank you, Rob, for doing that.
So if you scroll up, you'll be able to see the other images and whatnot that are there.
There we go. Snuffy and Zoe Toy Box.
Adventures.
Nikki Nardson, Mega Moose Comics.
Yep. And a lot of tiers and what have you. So that's your basic. It gives you a nice little idea of what the tone is of the comics.
Awesome.
And they are quite.
Just put
they are family friendly, young parent, financial friendly perks.
Sweet.
So, and so anyway, there are a lot of things that I like to get some sort of to give an idea of more about the type of material that I'm doing. I also have a YouTube channel that I have lots of videos about animation and using the characters Snuffy and Zoe to I show how the various principles of animation, squash and stretch, and bits of and pieces of how I make the drawings, and actually show the examples of what these principles are, and that helps you understand how to make your own drawings. That's another thing. I have a blog on it's johncelestri.blogspot.com. I give all kinds of free lessons that you can just you just look at. You're not looking at YouTube. You're actually looking at drawings that you can then I'll explain why I did a drawing the way I did, and a lot of principles there. So there's a lot of free material between my YouTube channel and my blog for anyone who wants to learn how to draw, how to write, how to animate, how to make your own cartoons and comics.
John, give me the Blogspot address again.
Oh, it's johncelestri.blogspot.com. Let me see here. Let me go on to this here.
I got it. We're going to kick that into the...
oh, you got it?
Yep. I'm going to kick that into across the bottom there so folks can see it.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah.
Or is that at Blogspot?
It is johncelestri.blogspot.com.
Awesome. Okay.
That's it.
And I spelt it right.
Yes, you did. Oh, my. Well, that's because you're an Easterner.
So Snuffy and Zoe have a toy box.
They have a toy box.
And they're bears.
They are bears. They're siblings. They are, they're very cantankerous. They play outside, and when sometimes they get attacked by storm clouds, who are, they don't, they're like, say Snuffy and Zoe are playing baseball, and Zoe hits one. Zoe's the gal, and she hits a high fly ball that almost hits a thunderhead. A thundercloud, and they start gathering, and they start throwing their lightning bolts at them. And the kids have to go. Snuffy and Zoe have to run back into their house, and they're just bored like crazy. But their toy box tells them, "Hey, stop messing, stop whining, and start making up your own information, your own entertainment." Which is basically what it's all about. Mm-hmm. It's encouraging young kids to use their own imagination to create their own entertainment and to develop their own imagination muscles.
Sweet. And is there anything else that you want to tell us about Nicky Nartz and Mega Moose?
Okay, Nicky Nartz. Well, basically, it's a young guy, a kid. It's a wish fulfillment, and basically it's surviving, middle and high school, and that's I think most people will relate to that in some way.
Oh yeah,
shape or form.
Yep, sounds awesome.
Yep.
All right, real quickly here, we're going to run through the comments here. Era Galenian. Hi, all. Good morning. Good morning, Ara. Hope you're doing well. News Insider. And I think that's it for the moment. We have a lot of YouTube connections. All right. Hey, everybody out there. We are doing the Sunday Funnies this morning. We're talking about comics, fun, lighthearted comics, the fun part of comics, with John Celestri, the John The Animator Comics. John's got a very long history in animation, a history in novel writing, crime fiction, historical crime fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's now got a Indiegogo campaign that'll be starting up on September 1st.
Absolutely.
Great.
That's it.
Anything else you want to tell the listeners about the campaign, John?
Well, basically, I've made it very easy to get it. I mean, I've got it basically as the bottom tier is 15. It's a $15 start, and it's got two books. I've got you'll get two books. One is one of the adventure series, either The Dragon and the Cupcake, or What Do You Do with a Stinky Pirate? One of those two, and you get a Stuffy and Zoe a draw in color book, which is a 20-page, with instructions on how to draw, some basic understanding of drawing, and then some coloring pages. And everything is oversized. I mean, they're all formatted by an A3 format, which is about almost 8.5 by 11 by 3/4. I like to make them large size books. Same thing with Mega Moose. So they're all very high quality, premium stock paper, so that they stand alone. They're not floppies per se. They are made to at least last a good while.
That's magazine format, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that'll fit into a standard magazine comic bay.
It should.
Sure. No, I'm sure it will.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the oversized.
Yep.
It shouldn't stop anybody from collecting them.
No, not at all. But once again, think of it as the next step up is a trade bound.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that because it just adds too much to the cost.
I hear you. Yeah.
If I were doing something where I'm collecting, 12 issues, and then I've got like, a 200-page book, well, that's different.
Right.
Then it's worthwhile.
And you'll get there.
Yeah.
Once again, everybody, that's John the Animator Comics. You can find that on Indiegogo. Just run over there and take a look at the pre-launch page. The official campaign starts on September 1st. And we are currently joined by Mr. Varian Grant. Varian, are you alive this morning?
I am. Just barely, though, but I'm there.
Now, we're going to have, on the Sunday Funnies program, we're going to have John on pretty often because he's got a lot of stories. He's done a lot of things. He's written a lot of stuff. We've just barely scratched the surface of John. And we've had him on the Indie Volt podcast a couple of times, and he's got great stories and lots of things to tell us. We can learn a lot from John. So,
Yeah, I just popped in because I seen you had a full green room, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna go back there and eat Cheetos.
Yeah.
Or this early in the morning, I can't promise they're not stale.
Yeah.
Probably not. You might have to go back into the supply cupboard and get some fresh ones. The Fritos are mine, though. Leave the Fritos alone.
Oh.
I'm just telling you. Make sure you have some of them sugar-free gummy bears while you're back there, too.
No, not I. I know about the sugar-free gummy bears.
That'll help your system.
Yeah, I was looking at the artwork here, and the Snuffy and Zoe artwork. Just looking at it really takes me back to when I was a kid, and like some of that. I always call that ingenious character design that you wanted to keep drawing over and over when you were a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted to draw. Ninja Turtles over and over again, or certain characters. I'll tell you a character I used to be addicted to drawing. You guys are gonna laugh. I used to be addicted to drawing. Well, obviously Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles, the Terminator. I thought they were the coolest things ever. And when I got older, it was Johnny Bravo.
Huh.
Okay.
For some reason, Johnny Bravo was always hard to draw to me. But these characters, I'm looking at them like, yeah, I think that I could draw these guys, and it just seemed fun to draw. And I think people really respond to characters that are fun to look at,
accessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's they are designed. This is all my personal sense of design. I'm not, trying to please a boss with an edgy element to it. These are, Snuffy and Zoe, and even, Mega Moose is a bit more sophisticated, but Snuffy and Zoe are based on circles and just straight lines. And that's what animation used to be, and that's what cartooning used to be, a simplicity of line and simplicity of form, because you had to be able to move them easily and do multiple drawings, every hour, maybe like 4 drawings, an hour to move the characters around. So design-wise, they are based on old school principles of animation of the 30s and 40s.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I learned how to draw when my uncle gave me a book when I was 8 years old on from the Walter Lantz Studios called Easy Way to Draw. That broke all of their characters down into circles and curved lines. That's how I learned to draw. That's how I teach cartooning now.
Okay.
And that's, like you said, that's really all it is, so that it can be drawn quick and over again, just circles and curved lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what keeps kids from doing things, saying, well, I can't really draw this because it's not fun, or I don't know. That's another thing, attraction. Appeal is paramount for kids. You want to, you have to pull them into the design and make them feel, especially the eyes. Yeah. If you can see, if you make a character look at you straight and emote just with your eyes and the smile, then you really have something. You have a connection with the reader or viewer.
When it comes to cartooning or teaching cartooning, the one thing that I learned is to inspire, not really inspire the kids, but to show the kids how easy it is to do. And then once they've done a couple of characters, you see that little light bulb go off over their head, literally, sometimes literally, and they can just tackle anything from there on. And then they're starting to, you're up there drawing a character, standing character, and they're drawing them running and moving and doing all sorts of things. It's always inspiring to see when a kid realizes exactly how easy it is to be able to draw and even eventually do their own characters.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what? I see Daphne back in the green room. She's probably eager to come up front and talk to you for a little bit. So I'm going to bring her in also. Daphne, sorry to leave you back there for so long.
No problem. I'm just completely enamored by this whole thing.
You can tell by your face. Yeah.
I mean, it's like just looking at that background and seeing all those books, it just gives me the warm fuzzies, I mean, and I remember when a lot of those books were new.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Now, don't be dating ourselves. Everybody's going to think, oh, you're that old, huh? Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's Photoshop.
I just want to say I don't remember some books when they were new. I am still fairly youthful and
Varian's the baby of the group.
Yeah, you're the kid and I'm grandpa.
Yeah. Randy usually says, I always forget how young you are.
Yeah, keep forgetting how young you are. Yeah. Well, I had somebody, I just did a video on how to draw hot stuff. And I had somebody in the comments go, "Who's this character?"
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Oh man."
It's like, hold on, I gotta sleep under the bed right now.
So it's like, watch the video. Watch the video.
Wow.
Oh man, Hot Stuff was one of my favorites as a kid.
Yeah.
He really, I mean, that and Tuffy the Ghost.
Yeah. Tuffy the Ghost. That was Charlton, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yes. That wall is Harvey.
Harvey. Was it? No, Spooky.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, right there. Look at the H over there. That's Harvey.
Oh yeah. No, Hot Stuff was. Yeah.
Hot Stuff but Casper was Harvey also.
Yeah. Casper and Spooky and Nightmare the horse and Ghostly Trio. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I always attribute those guys to Archie for some reason. And I always attribute them to Archie. I'm like,
Oh, it's probably the style.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could be.
You know, I want to tell you guys this too. This is something that crossed my mind the other day. And me and my son he's 10 now. We had a good talk about this. He's been going back through Netflix and any type of streaming service we have. We have a lot of them on TV for some reason. Mm-hmm. And he's been looking at old cartoons.
Sure.
And a lot of streaming cartoons. And he's starting to watch the older stuff that I watched, you know, stuff from the 80s and 90s. And
it's not that old, though.
Well, yeah.
I worked on some of those things.
There you go.
And he's watching them, and one of his current favorites is Mummies Alive. And I asked him, I say, hey, man, why are you watching this? You know, so much, because, like, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that's, like, you know, from, you know, this is made for his generation. Mm-hmm. And he told me he likes my stuff better. And I'm like, yeah, right, it's quality entertainment. But we had this talk, and he told me that I started noticing something about him. His problem solving skills, his ability to deduce what the problem is, mm-hmm. has actually started to get a little bit better. And I want to attribute that to cartoons because I was thinking about that. Like the cartoons that I had coming up, they taught you that, you know, you had to be proactive on your problems. You had to, there's a problem, heroes ran in, they fixed it. You know, it's usually through unending mindless violence, but they fixed it.
I was going to say, it's like that meme you see around Facebook now of the social distancing X's on the ground, and the guy going, "I've seen too many Roadrunner cartoons to want to stand there."
Yeah, man, you never get me.
I know what happens.
Yeah,
it's not good.
but his cartoons are usually based on snap a game or something you got to go buy from the store. Mm-hmm. And not action figures. So the role play element's kind of gone. But his cartoons are all based on like games that you have to follow the rules. The rules are set. You have to follow them.
Yeah.
And he's starting to like my cartoons. The only problem is the toys for those cartoons are all gone. So
if there were toys for them, they're long gone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because back then they used to do cartoon shows just to do cartoon shows. You know, they didn't do cartoon shows for toys.
Fools.
Well, until you hit
there were FCC rules for that kind of thing, if I'm not mistaken. Back when I was a kid. So.
Which ironically, it was the Children's Television Network that had those rules repealed.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to sell Sesame Street toys. And, you know, it's like, well, you can't have one without the rest of it. So that's how we ended up with the cartoons. Well, I grew up with, you know, that were made specifically to sell toys.
Oh, you probably were watching a Strawberry Shortcake.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Strawberry Shortcake, Care Bears, Smurfs,
Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, all of it. Whatever was, you know, because also the thing is too is that when you can only catch that programming on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sat there and watched everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. You were up early Saturday morning just to watch the show, and you knew the lineup. You knew the lineup by heart, and you were
right. It's like you knew the day was over when the ABC Weekend Special book opened, and then it's like, okay, this is the last one.
I'm out of here.
For me, it was always the science fiction or monster movie that came on right at noon or 1 o'clock.
Right,
yeah, because you could wake up as early when I was, a kid. I could wake up as early as 5 on Saturday morning. The cartoons were going, and from 5 to noon. They start the noon movie, and it's like, I'm out of here. This is, or on Sundays it was when Meet the Press came. I was like,
exactly.
So what was your first cartoon gig, John? What was your first animation gig?
My first gig was was with on at the New York Institute of Technology that was developing computer animation. This was 1974, and I wound up getting a job there because through I'd been schlepping my portfolio all over New York City from one studio to another, and they said, well, you don't have any experience and blah blah blah. Well, they hadn't had new people for 20 years in the animation industry, and in at least in New York City, you had there were a lot of 2, 3, 4, 5-person studios, but they were all ex Terry Toons, Fleischer, famous, studio animators. So out in Long Island at New York Institute of Technology, the school was gathering up old Popeye, Fleischer, and famous cartoonists they were developing a film called Tubby the Tuba from the Paul Tripp show. They had Pearl Bailey, what's his name? Oh my God. There were a whole bunch of actors and voices and whatnot, but so they needed new people. And so I got hired on there to learn. And that's how I learned animation. I didn't go to school for it. I had gone to six classes at the School of Visual Arts during the summertime, and one night a week, and did my own little film and schlepped that around, and that's how I got into it. And I learned the old studio way of apprenticing with other animators and learning how to do everything that way. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I did that from for about 14 months. That was my first job traveling. It was a 4.5-hour round trip every day. Ooh. To go from Brooklyn to Penn Station to out to Long Island and then back. So I did that as my apprentice. So I did my time.
Yeah.
That commute is still 4 hours, by the way.
Well, Daphne, you know what that is. I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. So I was in Bensonhurst, Coney Island, take the train out to Penn Station, get the Long Island Railroad out to Old Westbury, Long Island, wow. Then get the subway, then get the school bus and go to the school. And that's what we did. So yeah, you have an idea.
Yeah. It's just going from Brooklyn to into Penn Station is like, okay, I'm exhausted already.
See, I like that though. I mean, it's like that's almost like a labor. 4 hours each way.
Yeah. Well, round trip. It was 2.5 hours back and forth, So it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours getting there and then coming back because I didn't wait for anything coming back. So
that's pretty cool. You gotta respect somebody who takes that trip every day. For an apprenticeship, yeah, it's whew.
Yeah.
I was very young. I was, as I said, it was 25. I would not do that now.
That's for sure.
At 25, I don't know if I'd
for very long. Meredith Logren, thanks a lot for listening. And I was always mystified how anyone could draw the same character over and over again and have it be recognizable later.
Daphne, you've been doing this for a long time.
Oh, well, yeah, I was about to say, it's like, well, it goes either one of two ways. It's like either you become an absolute expert in that character at the end, or you just dissolve into gibberish at the very end.
Well, if you were working in animation, you were working off character sheets.
Right, yeah.
Right, that showed exact dimensions for all the characters, and you always had them there next to you to refer back to.
Well, technically, comic book artists are supposed to do that too with our own characters, but
sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's development. I mean, you look at Charles Schultz over a period of just the first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Until you know what the character's all about, they have to go through. Yes, once you've hit a certain level of development, say, okay, I like this. You try to stay, but if you're growing, you're experimenting, and you're going to change.
Yeah.
You know.
Garfield is also a prime example of that. He started out looking like a Killebron cat, and then evolved into his own style.
Yeah, you know,
Well, even Charles Schultz characters.
Yeah.
yeah. Which the Charlie Brown characters they became more defined over time, and I sometimes think it's because it's easier to draw them.
I just figured they grew up because they started out with really big heads, and then their dimensions got a lot more kiddish.
I was at too. I remember Randy giving me some advice when I started doing a strip in the Flint comics. He said, "Look, if you're going to do a strip, and I think you're telling me it's not you're telling me to stay on deadline. Just you got to strip away some of these."
He never listened to that one.
Well,
you got to strip away some of these details of the character. And I'm like, okay. So you see me at first, like, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. I can do this. And then later on, I started noticing, he's right. If I strip away some of these details of the character, the picture comes out a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And what's important is the character still identifiable? So it's kind of cool because as you look at the strip, you see this real quick change. I learned real quick why, and it's all of a sudden now the whites in the character's eyes disappear, and they're just dots there instead of the whites in us. And there's some changes on I think the buttons on his jacket, they're no longer as detailed as they once were. His belt is a solid strap with a gold plate. Mm-hmm. All these little details I was doing, it's Elf Quest like details. Nah, no thank you. I'm not doing that anymore. Everybody's ears got really simplistic. So, but that was a lot easier to replicate. Yeah, right. Panel by panel by panel, that was a lot easier. So,
Not for nothing. The dots for eyes was kind of like a game changer for me, and believe it or not, I got the idea from I got it from Mobius. I was reading the Incal, and I was I apologize for the parrot in the back.
There's a parrot. That is not your smoke detector.
Yes,
Anybody
exactly.
listening on the Indie Vault Radio.
I was reading the Incal, and I actually was really surprised as to how Mobius simplified the characters to the point of just using dots for eyes. And I'm going, what am I doing? If it's good enough for Mobius, that's good enough for me. And it really did save a lot of time, especially when I had to draw characters really small. Mm-hmm. All this time I thought I had to put in every little detail. It's like, no, bloop, bloop, done. There we go.
Right. Well, that's an old animation idea. They strip everything down to very basic shapes. But somebody else that in comics that I caught that from that I admired a lot was C.C. Beck doing the original Captain Marvel. Because Billy Batson always had dots for eyes, and Captain Marvel started out
more like Superman.
Wincing. Yeah, Superman was kind of like that too. But Schuster did that a lot. Yeah. But then everybody was doing it by that point. After strips had been out for a little while, everything drops down to the basic icons. Dots for eyes, little lines for eyebrows, lines for a nose, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's also an openness. Certain depends on how when you simplify your line work, you don't have pencil mileage, as what we call it.
Yeah.
Pencil mileage. Then you suddenly start opening it up, and it feels like there's more color that goes into it. And then you start having to you can focus on the dynamic aspects of what you're drawing. Your silhouettes. You can focus. You can spend more time, playing with that than having to say, okay, I know this here. I can't play with this. I don't have enough time to experiment.
Right.
And that's one thing that's good for simplicity of it. But in animation, everything is supposed to be moving, Whereas once the animation stopped and you could see the pose for about 2 seconds or 3 seconds, then people say, well, that's kind of boring. So playing it, especially on a big screen. Because you're, a comic book artist, you have to think about reduction, okay? Animation, expansion.
Wow. Yeah.
So you have to think about all those things, and so it depends on what kind of artwork and what the purpose is for, it's going to be used for.
So, John, after Tubby, I'm getting a feedback on my voice here. So after Tubby the Tuba, where did you go?
Tubby was still going along, but New York City was starting to open up a bit more, and so the Raggedy Ann and Andy was gearing up, and so I got hired on as a supervising assistant animator, and so I got hired on by Richard Williams with his crew of young people, and that in New York, because they had two different studios going. They had one in New York and one in Los Angeles. The one in New York was there because it was Broadway. It was where it was a Broadway company. Was it Bob's Merrill wanted to do originally a Broadway show, a musical using Raggedy Ann and Andy, but they decided, well, for the toys, it'd be better if they did it animated wise. Well, so I got hired on that way with, to the Raggedy Ann and Andy. It was all the young animators of New York, all the young people. That was sort of like the Big Bang, because there on that staff were young animators like myself, Dan Haskett, who helped design later on Little Mermaid, and a lot of the stuff that you see at Disney's and at Warner Brothers, and then Eric Goldberg, who designed and did the genie in Aladdin afterwards, and Tom Cito, who became a very he was the union leader for in Los Angeles for about 9 years, and he was a chair at USC Animation now, has been for the last 10 years. So there was a concentration of all these people there in New York, and we were all New Yorkers, and so that was the big thing there. That had all of the old Disney animated, old school, Bob, Art Babbitt and Charlie Dowes and Corny Cole, and again Richard Williams. We got instructions, on a daily basis. So that was another thing. So that was where my training also went for about 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my.
And what happened after then?
Oh. Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Pardon?
Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot. No.
Okay. I got a job. What happened was that it was winding down, and through reasons of office of needing to change a director, and Richard Williams, was going over budget, so they brought in another director who was one of his friends. He was Canadian, but he also Canadian, and Richard Williams is Canadian and British. Anyway, he came up to me and into my room and said, "Okay, I have a friend up in Toronto. They need an animator because one of their animators broke their wrist. And so, does anybody want to go to Canada for this job?" And I was expecting one of my. It was late at night, and we were at the studio. We were trying to grind out this, the footage. And I was expecting the director to say, "Okay, how fast can you go?" And whatnot. Well, anyway, I was expecting one of my assistants who happened to be Canadian from Montreal, and he said no. I was expecting him to say, "Yeah, I'll go back," and he said, "I don't want to go to Toronto. I'm not going." So I raised my hand. I said, "Okay, I'll go." So the next 2 nights later, I'm on a plane to Toronto with my reel in hand and my recommendation to say, okay, and this was Nelvana. And Nelvana was doing A Cosmic Christmas. And they were trying to do the first animated TV special, all Canadian one. And so I wound up there. And that's how I got there. But prior to that, I had been hired by Friz Freeling to go and work for him, if I ever showed up in California to work at the Paddy Freeling studio. So he was looking for young talent. He saw my portfolio, and so I got my official notification that I was an animator from Friz Freeling.
There you go. Yeah.
So I don't know. You could keep on going, but
Keep going.
Yeah. We're here all day.
I mean, some people don't know who Friz Freeling is. It's just people. Yosemite Sam. It's just like it's like you talk about history. And when I was there was Bob Clampett. No, not Bob Clampett. What's his name? Anyway, there were all of these various other directors working for Friz on their TV show. So that was about summer of 77. So I had gotten my first job in 1974, the end of 1974. And so by the summer of 77, I'd had 2 features and a TV special under my belt, and I was arriving in California. So to work on baggy pants and the nitwits and things like that.
So you bounced from New York to Toronto to California.
Right, New York to Toronto, back to New York for a little bit, then went to California, then went back to Canada, then went back to Los Angeles.
And while you were in Canada, was that rock and roll?
Yeah, that was Devil and Daniel Mouse, which is a funny hit. Devil and Daniel Mouse, all of the Nelvana stuff, directing Easter Fever, and all of the half hours that we did there, then Rock and Roll, and then some Strawberry Shortcakes. And so that was a period of time from 77 and Star Wars Holiday Special. Sure. So that goes from 77 until about 83.
Now, when you worked on these movies, and by the way, I think the Raggedy Ann and Andy cartoon, I think, is one of those cartoons that for the longest time I thought I hallucinated.
Yes, and it was, especially the Taffy Pit.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. It's like, really. But it's like when you worked on these on these features, were you given like specific characters to animate, or you were given scenes to animate? Like
I was an assistant at a time, but yes, what Richard Williams did on Raggedy Ann and Andy was, for the first time, he actually, nobody had ever done this before, but he gave credit in the opening. If you look at opening credits, he'd show pictures of the animators and the names of the animators who animated the characters. So no one had ever done that before. So everybody was cast, in terms of who was able to, who did better, and that was a kind of a Disney thing that used to be in the 40s, which was to take characters and say, okay, you're in charge of that character, you're in charge of that character, and then you had a crew underneath you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes whoever had the strongest, most time, like if we had when 2 characters shared and you had 1 or 2, you would play around with, and you'd tag team back and forth on the scene. So because you were working multiple levels. So, but you only had 6 levels back then. Think of it this way, today, with Photoshop you can have who knows how many levels. Back then you could only have 6 levels of acetate for your drawings, because because the cell thickness would change the color of the paint.
Oh wow.
So you had to adjust for that. So you had to know you couldn't really jump from from level 1 to level 4. You could jump from level 1 to level 3 maybe, or definitely from 1 to 2. But there had needed a color adjustment from 1 to 3 or to 4.
Wow.
So when you would see, maybe like if I'm watching at home as a kid, and you would see those quick color jumps. That because someone maybe went from 1 to 4.
And it'd be subtle. It'd be really subtle, but it's there if you know what you're seeing.
Yeah. I have a question for you, John. Now you watched a lot of the stuff you worked on.
What do you mean? Like I in the middle of the night I go and take out my VCR and pop it in, or what?
Well, when it was airing on television, did you watch it?
Actually, you only got to see it once, maybe, because there was nothing. I mean,
you were probably working 6 to 8 months past anything that was on television anyway.
Oh yeah, we were. I don't really watch. I mean, we would for the specials, for example. We would like at Nelvana. I'd say, okay, let me see this. I want to see what's going on. But because I knew how many sections, I mean, like a lot of things, you'd have like a minute or 2 minute sequence that you worked on. So it wasn't like you just popped in a couple of scenes here and then popped there. You had a continuity that you could say, okay, I took it from this to there. So let me see how it. I'm glad it worked out, because you'd see it, at the studio sometimes.
Because I was wondering, because I remember being a kid and watching, cartoons and seeing like things that still stick out to me as a kid. How did they mess that up? Like the wrong, and I know some of it comes down in editing, like the wrong voice comes out the wrong turtle. But one of my favorites was there's a scene in Transformers where whoever does the coloring must have been asleep at the wheel, because all of the Decepticon strikers, the airplanes, were the same color. All of them. Like they changed. They didn't bother. The difference was they were all colored differently. That's how you could tell them apart.
Yeah.
Well, somebody decided, nah, I don't make them all the same color, and so you could not tell which was which and this kept going for like a couple scenes.
Well, that's because it was all out. You talk about Transformers.
Yeah,
that was all outsourced to overseas.
Right.
And so they would simplify things. They simplify, designs, change colors and whatnot, because they had to, they said, well, we're producing it, and it'll go by so fast nobody will ever see it. And they didn't have a quality control, a production person from Los Angeles over there with a strong enough clout to say, okay, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Because again, it's all piecework.
I could just hear that telephone conversation now. Make them all green. Just make them all green.
Well, especially and there was a different, it really depends. You're changing, if you're doing like 65 half-hour shows, cranking them out, people are saying, oh, please, they know who they are. That's basically,
that's another change in animation that I'm really surprised by. The fact that back in the day, a season was like 60-something episodes, and now you're lucky if a season even gets 12.
Yeah. Well, it was traditionally 13 because they were weekly. The 65 was because they were syndicated every day. One show every day. And that happened with He-Man and She-Ra. That was the first time that happened. From that point on, they said, oh, that's how we get, we're able to get eyeballs. Because it was no longer, with syndication, you could say, okay, well, we're going to do this and we're going to run it. but it was still basically a 13-week season. So that's what it is. But then what happened is that if it did well, then you'd get another, maybe you would get another 20 episodes added on top of that. So that would flesh it out. Then you get to like maybe 85 episodes.
Wow.
And because you were talking about, you're running them every day.
Right.
If you were doing a regular TV show at that time, having 26 episodes a full year, which would have been a season, would be enough, because then you'd repeat it. By the time you got to the 26, and it's only once a week, and no one else could stop it and rerun it and watch it over again because you didn't have video.
Right. Oh, because it always blew my mind. It's like, wait a minute, how did this show only last like a year and a half? But it's like, it felt like it ran forever. I mean, it's like, and then realizing that She-Ra and He-Man had more episodes in one season than the entire run of Steven Universe.
Yeah.
Well, that's, anyway, that could be Steven Universe too.
Wow. I do think that.
Did that sound hateful?
Yeah, we want to keep it positive.
We do want to say positive.
This is positive time. This positivity.
Yes, positivity.
Cat people, no catty attitude.
I apologize.
I'll say this. Also, as a kid, big fan of the Smurfs, but I remember having back in the 80s, I'm convinced my mother could find any bootleg material. Like, it's like it found her. And she'd bring it home to me and say, "Look what I found you." So like Alvin the Chipmunks toys didn't come out till like toward my my disassociation with the brand as a big fan. I'm still a big fan, but I had moved on to, hey, these robots are killing each other. This is awesome. And but my mother, when I was a kid, I was small. I was really into the Smurfs, and my mother could find any non-licensed material ever. And I remember her buying me Smurfs like shirts, and they would upset me with these shirts because they would be colored shirts, like everyone would be colored correctly, except for the damn Smurfs. So I knew they had the ability to color these correctly. The Smurfs would all be white, all of them. Like they didn't bother, no pigmentation, just white, like the absence of color. Their eyes would, but then the pants would be like a beige, and it's like, who are these people on my shirt? I mean, I see it now. Papa Smurf was colored correctly, except for, he'd be white, but his beard was beige. His pants were red. His hat was red. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized that this is bootleg merchandise. Yeah. This wasn't quite the Smurfs. It was the Smurfs, but yeah.
It was the Smarfs.
Yeah.
Remember
Smart.
all those bootleg Simpsons shirts that were kind of like the same thing?
Oh, I had so many Black Bart shirts. So many. Now, John, do you know any animators that moonlighted or did like commissions? Was that a thing? Did anybody ever say, "Oh my God, you worked on this? Could you draw me that character?"
Back in let's say during the back when everybody was doing working at studios and whatnot, they had work like for example the Fleischers and the Terry Toon guys. They're in New York, right? And so therefore the comic book corporations, companies were there, DC, Harvey, whatever it was. And so all of those Popeye and, well, not so much Popeye, but rather the Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll and the Harvey stuff, they were all moonlighting. They were all animators who were doing the drawings. you know, so that was their side gigs, you know, doing that. You know, they didn't need to go to do that, you know, outside of that. There wasn't fandom. You know, you just had regular people. You know, say, I want a Mickey Mouse, you know, clock and whatnot, or I liked the comic books, and you had your T-shirts and what have you. But merchandising really didn't hit the roof as much as it was until, like, you know, He-Man and She-Ra, you know, and you know, it was a late time, you know, for production and what have you. But in the old days, the comic books were the biggest things, and then maybe there would be some Mickey Mouse and Disney merchandise, you know.
I think one of my biggest regrets was not taking advantage when Don Bluth was doing commissions.
Oh.
Yeah, this was like years ago. Like, I don't even remember like the context of it. He was just offering up like sketches, and it's like you could ask for whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was like going, oh, I'll catch him later. And then,
oh yeah,
yeah, like he's doing that now. I mean, I regretted so much not taking advantage.
I lost a friend over Don Bluth.
What?
Oh,
I lost it. Yeah, because we were talking about animated and cartoons, and I said, man, I really love like the Don Bluth style animation, and he rolled his eyes, and I looked at him. I said, "What's that?" We were teenagers. I'm like, "What was that? What was that?" And he's like, that all that fluid and rolling there, people all like rubber bands and stretching and stuff. I don't like it, and I insulted his mother. And his and
high noon. Hey, let's down. I'll see you.
Who wants fluid animation?
Yeah.
It sparkles.
I
don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
That was a clip from.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not used to this group.
Sorry, John.
I disassociated from him very quickly after that, and we hadn't talked much after that because he didn't like that, and he didn't like the animation in the Chipmunk Adventure. He said everyone looks like rubber bands, everyone bounces around. He didn't like that type of style, and I'm like, are you crazy? That's the pinnacle of animation.
It's squash and stretch. That's
yeah.
What's funny is that's actually the thing that I feel is really missing from modern animation nowadays. It's like everything is done in Flash and whatever computer program they're using, and it's like there's no. I'm like, watch. It's like there's no squash and stretch. Where's the squashing? Where's the stretching? Instead, it's like they're trying to fake it by like just physically stretching like the way you do it in Photoshop, and it's like, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's just really strange to me to not see squash and stretch.
Well, the basic thing is that the way that the artwork is created, most of stuff, and now that's going on with Harmony, they are manipulating puppets.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
That's what it is. So the movement is from outside, so you're placing stuff and moving things around, you know, and then, you know, maybe trying to adjust with your tablet. Draw the damn thing. Sorry,
yeah, exactly.
Really
you're all right, John.
To draw, you know, just to pick. I mean, I'm still pencil and paper. Mm-hmm. That's how I do everything. I still, you know, I don't go through it's the animation process, and then just scan everything in. And adjust the contrast, and just put it into a clip art paint. You know, that's what I do, and then I color it. But I use flats. I don't use the shade. I don't do any of the shading. I just you know, just put it in, and that way I use my palette. But anyway, in terms of the drawing today, you're not drawing. You are manipulating. So the poses are not coming from within the artist. It's the character is being manipulated from without.
Yeah.
And you can't, and you can't. You know, you could do a certain amount of faking, but you're trying to fake it. You know, to get something that what you used to be able to do just by, you know, running your line across a page. So
Yeah, I
but
think-
that's what the squash.
Oh, okay, because I think like the most horrifying thing that I came across was watching somebody who said that they were an animator,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't know how to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how can you have these two conflicting pieces of information coming out of your mouth?
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that it's like, oh well, I rig. I'm a rigger. I rig and it's like, yeah, it's like she's a puppet.
Yeah.
She does puppets.
Yeah.
So because of that, she doesn't need to know how to draw. And it was just like, I am horrified by this information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a completely different world, and that's why if there's going to any kind of development, or I won't say the word saving, or just kind of moving forward the artwork or the art in the craft of animation is going to have to be through independence.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get it out of out of corporations. They couldn't care less.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So
Amazingly, it's the same thing here in comics.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not going to get the innovation out of the corporations. They have a demographic that they've decided they're going to hit, and that's all they're going to go for.
Mm-hmm.
Or they suddenly feel that young adult novels are more profitable than regular comics, so that's what they're going to go out and do, or digital comics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's completely walk away from the art form.
Yeah, but every artist, every person who has a half hour or an hour can actually, in a year, you can do something and put together enough material to do a crowdfunding and just put up your artwork and just do, this is my vision. You didn't have that, years ago. Yeah. You can do this and say, okay, this is why I don't like, this is what I think is good. Yeah. And you can, I'm sure you can sell a couple of hundred copies some way. And you should know that, Daphne, right?
Yeah, somehow you can sell it. Somehow. Mm-hmm. There's always a way to sell something. But also the funny thing is to see just like how many just individual animators just do things just to pop on, just to put it on YouTube or just to put it on Twitter. I've seen some amazing shorts that it's you could never see anyplace else but online.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's I wonder, where did you get the time for this? I mean, because I would think that doing it's these guys are pumping out more animated shorts than I can put out an issue of a comic, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Oh, it takes I don't know. I spent 2 years doing a 2-minute short, but I did everything myself, and I did it, But it's just kind of like old school. I mean, it's really hard to do that, and that it takes a while.
Yeah.
But you've been doing this for now. All three of you have done, all your comics and your line art, and you're doing stuff, and it's kind of like, how do you feel the audience is when you reach people? Because I haven't done that yet. This is my first comic book, crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious as to how people react to, and do you know who you're aiming at, or are you just making as a general thing, or what?
Well, I what's funny is that in your introduction, I realized that my book is what they start reading after they finish your books. Oh, because you said that your books is from 12 and under, so mine is from 13 and up.
But that's the thing, is that's what the comic book industry is aimed at. So I thought, I want to get into this. I call them seedlings. Mm-hmm. These are the seedlings, and so I know what I'm doing for that market. So let me, present it to that way.
Right. Yeah.
Well, back in the 40s, 50s, and even the 60s, the comics were prepped like that. You had comics that were made for kids. Mm-hmm. And at different levels as they grew up, that's one of the importance of the old Archie comics.
Mm-hmm.
out there, is that they caught that audience that was caught between kid stories and the adult superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just that it's narrowed out and been dropped by the larger corporations. So there was no really quest for that. And then they decided that they had to narrow it down even further to mostly male, mostly 25 to 55, because that's where the money was, and that's all that they wanted to aim for. So very rarely did you see, and every once in a while you saw them pop out the Marvel Star line. The DC's done Scooby-Doo and aimed at a kids market here and there. And once Gold Key left back in probably the mid or late 80s or early 90s, then comics that were aimed at that bridge were just left to Archie, and their big money maker at that point was Sonic, off of the game, and the cartoon. So, and then Turtles popped up to work on that void. That's Variant's era.
Yeah.
There. Archie did a lot of Turtles comics back in the day when the animated show was out.
It's funny about those Archie Turtles comics. At first, Archie had this weird thing where you could tell the writers got more comfortable as the series would go on when I was reading, and then it would start to deviate heavily from the source material. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you had characters showing up that did not have any basis in the animation or the source material, and you had Turtles getting girlfriends, and same with Sonic. Sonic got really dark, and it's funny because I was watching a video with some of the animators from that time. Working on Sonic, because they had two different versions. They had the Sonic from I guess they're both from Deke in a way, but they had the weekday one, which is more kind of like slapstick Looney Tunes type of storyline, non-connecting episodes, and then they had the Saturday morning one that did have continuity. Mm-hmm. And it was the comic kind of was closer to that, but even still, it would go darker, and the comic was. But those guys did not have a good time working on that. Let me tell you, they did not have a good time working on the. See, from all the stuff that's come out afterwards, wow. There you go, Randy. You get them on the show, they'll feel like 4 hours just name calling each other. It's horrible.
But it's supposed to be positive.
Exactly.
This is supposed to be an up program. You're supposed to be here having fun.
The thing that Varian mentions is also something that I've been noticing, that it's like whenever there is an attempt to make a comic for children, like let's take My Little Pony for example. The second it shows that it has an adult fan base, all of a sudden, all the attempt of making a kid's comic goes out the window. Mm-hmm. That all of a sudden now it's like, oh, there are adults reading this. Now let's try to aim a children's comic towards adult readership. So of course it ends up completely changing the tone. Mm-hmm. I remember that at one convention, I had one mother complain to me. It's like, I can't even pick up My Little Pony comics for my own kid anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like they literally have a cover where the ponies are throwing a kegger. And it's like, why do I want to buy that for a kid? And it's
that sounds like a cover I need to dig up.
Right? I mean, that's how she described it. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I think it boils down to the artists or the publishers don't have a vision other than to make money for people who have the money. They're not looking at how to fill a need. They say, well, that's too hard. But you know what? I don't think, good Lord. I don't think that it's like, in Hollywood, films are made for 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds because the producers are 15 and 16-year-olds in their minds.
Right.
That's what they like.
Yeah.
Having worked in Hollywood, I know. So therefore, that's the thing is that you have to, okay, I'm making this cartoon for myself, but you know what? What part of you, at what stage are you? Can you remember what it was like to being a child?
Yeah.
that is what is needed.
Yeah.
You know, people need to not make innocence and whimsy, you know, bad words.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's kind of like innocence and whimsy are very different from snarky, you know, snarkiness and oh yeah, I'm breaking the fourth wall on this.
Right.
You know, you're too self-aware, you know.
Yeah. Because I was really thinking about this, like, okay, so what were the comics that I grew up on? And what's funny is that the comics that I grew up on when I was like a literal child, these comics, the entire time I knew them, were for children. You know, they were Disney comics, and because I spent a lot of time in Brazil, I was reading a children's comic called Turma da Mônica, which which is to this day, it's like the vibe of this comic has never changed to being about children. And then it's like eventually, I found Rocket Raccoon in a supermarket. And then I realized and then started to learn from there that comics could be something else. But the entire time I was growing up on children's comics, they were children's comics, which I don't know if that type of thing exists in the United States anymore. I don't know, like maybe you could read the old Disney, the old Disney comics or whatnot, which are just reprints of the foreign editions anyway.
Right.
But that's the thing. It's like there's nothing for kids that stay for kids, so that they'll eventually. I mean, it's not a bad thing. They eventually grow out of them,
right?
And then you move on to the next step. I mean,
but then again, what with the market the way it is now, and the way the store market, the fan base, they got older, and so therefore. It gets older, and they say, "Well, I've seen that before. I've seen that before." But the problem is that because it's all focused into places where only really people with money can buy comics today. You can't just throw things up, and that's a whole distribution problem and what have you. But in terms of drawing material, I don't think that or writing the material and creating it. You have to have a certain sensitivity to what your audience likes, and it's like there is a need. The need is, young kids, before they start exploring and whatnot, they have imaginations, so they're in the toy box. They're saying their world is. Okay, you can stay in this room here, and there's stuff inside here, and you start, making believe. So you have that, and that happens up until maybe about 7, because, kids, you're schlepped back and forth to the second grade. You're going to your kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You're 7 years old, and then you start thinking, well, look there! Look over there. I don't want to be home anymore. So you need more exploring. But within the safety of the nursery or the semi-nursery, your backyard, you can play. Then you start exploring outside of your. But then again, I'm thinking about being, growing up in Brooklyn, where I was, it was not unusual for me to walk myself. To my school that was down the block. I didn't have to worry about anything. And so, there's a different feeling of independence. So what you want to do is foster that. I mean, good Lord. I mean, I'm a latchkey kid, I'm 11 years old. I'm coming home from school, I got my key. I don't know what the circumstances now, but I'm sure there aren't. If you're all alone in your apartment, social services are coming.
Right? Yeah. Now it's like when I tell people the same thing, it's like, you ever hear latchkey kids? Well, what's that? It's like, it's like we're 11 years old. We're walking around with our own keys. We're going on the subway. We're going. It's like, oh, they let you do that? It's like, it's like they're just horrified now. It's like. And then I
That's right.
remembered that the 80s was not 10 years ago.
I'll tell you guys something. I'll tell you guys something. I never got a key to my mother and father's house. I never got a key until I was 20 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I never had a key.
Because your mom didn't trust you to be alone in her house?
She did not. She did not. There was always no. I mean, I started being able to stay alone, and I stayed alone late too. I mean, it was like
Hope that didn't tie back to those chipmunk drawings she found.
Yeah, I wasn't able to stay at home by myself. I'm gonna be honest. I think I was 14
Wow.
before she was like, "Yeah, you can stay by yourself."
Huh.
And the minute they all left, my butt got scared. I'm like, "No one's here. Huh? How am I gonna eat? How am I? What was that sound?"
You eat really questionable microwave food. That's what you do.
Yeah. It was rough, but you know, I was jealous of the latchkey kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe McPhee, thanks for listening and contributing, Joe. Well, is the outrage over subjects that is not kid-friendly is more about parents don't want to expose their kids to, as opposed to what the kids could experience? I'm not quite sure what you're asking there, if I read that wrong. The outrage over subjects that is not kid-friendly is more about what parents don't want to expose their kids to.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kids, what the kids would experience. When you think about it, we grew up with cartoons where the characters like Popeye, Bugs Bunny, and Woody Woodpecker were smoking in bars and saloons. But yet would complain that a My Little Pony kegger cover is too much. Seems unbalanced in perception of content by the parent.
Well, it's like the latchkeys. The idea of giving a 10-year-old their own key to the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but at the same time, they'd be horrified at giving their kids the key to the house, but the kid has their own iPhone.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to remember one thing is back then, kids ate more dirt than what they do today.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, because basically,
Dirt is the
everybody was a bit tougher in terms of what had to happen. You know, I mean, good Lord, and that's not to say that you want to put kids into
Bubble.
Well, I don't want them in a bubble,
Right,
but at the same time, I was 10 years. If I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I would go. My Sunday morning was my job is to go get the newspaper from my dad at the corner candy store, and also get him a pack of cigarettes. Now, how many kids, are allowed to go and get a pack of cigarettes? And they said, "Oh yeah, it's your dad. Okay, well he likes this,
Right.
this," and you go back. So, but what I'm saying is that there is a difference in tone. Bugs Bunny cartoons, animation of the 1930s and 40s were basically they were fillers for the program, part of the program package that were given that was pushed through to the various theaters, theater chains. And so what happened is that the cartoons were created for everybody. There was something for the parents and for the kids. And so things would go over people's heads and kids, but the adults would get it, and so on and so forth. It was never marketed just to children.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? They were not.
Yep. And the same thing applies for the Mickey Mouse comic strip and especially the Carl Barks Donald Ducks and Uncle Scrooge's. They weren't meant specifically for kids. They were meant for everybody to read.
Right.
And everybody did read them.
And everybody did that. I remember Dick Tracy was the most edgy thing in my 10-year-old mind, because I remember seeing Tracy shooting the brains out of a flat top.
Oh, it took on a lot of complaints at the time for being overly violent. Yeah.
But that was Sunday papers.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the comic strips.
It was.
So there's a difference. But if you're aiming something purely for children, we need to understand what the parameters are and aim it at them. Allow them to grow up, naturally.
Rob said he never moved on from comics or cartoons. Pop says he had a basement bedroom as a teenager with his own entrance and into the house and with a key, but Pop's our age. So
I'll tell you this. The thought of my 10-year-old having a key to this house is, I don't know if you heard my wife in the background.
Yeah.
It's still, yeah.
I don't know if maybe that was just a New York thing, because when I talk about it, people don't know what I'm talking about. So I don't know.
There was a lot more leniency in our time, a lot more trust in the kids. Yeah.
The thought of giving my 10-year-old key gives me palpitations. Like, I loan him my mailbox key to get the mail. I'm terrified the entire time. Like, how can you mess this up? If anybody can mess this up, it's my kid.
Well, I mean, the way my mom explained it, she goes, "Look, we had to work. We had no choice. It either worked or it didn't." Yeah. I mean, that was it.
Well, you have okay. This is a difference in terms of how old your parents were. Okay,
yeah.
My dad was born in 22. I mean, in 1923. My mom was born in 1922, and she lived in Italy during the war. Mm-hmm. So she went through a whole whack of stuff. My dad lived through the Depression. That's a whole nother thing. So they said, okay, this is the training that they got. So therefore, basically, the 50s were similar to the 40s in some ways, but you had all of the parents growing up, and they still had their training as what they got, and this is how they would teach kids. I remember, I'm 5 years old. I got a scar because of this. I'm 5 years old. My mom has left me alone in the house, in the apartment. She's outside, and I'm watching Romper Room. And they're teaching you how to make a tambourine out of sewing your needle and thread on paper with paper plates. And I remember doing that, and I did that, and I said, "Look, Ma!" I went rushing down the stairs, 2 flights of stairs and whatnot, and with my paper plate, and I tripped, and my hand went through a glass pane of the door, and I said, "Oh, that's a bone." And so and my mom was outside, and I said, "I think I got a problem." And she says, "Wow!" And she picked me up and carried me. I'm 5 years old. Again, this is a very strong memories here, right. and so I didn't die. I didn't cry or anything while he was sewing me up. Right. Maybe it was adrenaline that was getting me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
See, what you call strong memories, I call trauma. It's like I'll tell you this, and now my parents are pretty protective. But they were not protective in the fact that they allowed me to have cable television with a box in my room. And back then, there were no parental controls. Parental control was a belt. And so I could watch, whatever they had. Mm-hmm. And I remember one night, I was 8. I remember watching late at night. I woke up, I turned my TV on. And I no, that was later. That was way later with the squiggly lines trying to make out stuff. No, I ended up watching Rocky Horror Picture Show and A Clockwork Orange on HBO back to back.
There you go. When you're 8, that's impressionable right there.
Yeah. And I remember not feeling well for like 2 days afterwards. Like I was like, I didn't want. Yeah. My mind was like, I had been unplugged from the Matrix, and there was weird stuff going on in my head. I couldn't understand it, but that's what happened to me. That's why I am the way I am now.
Meredith says, when I was 4, Dad would give me money and send me to the store for a 6-pack of beer or a pack of smokes, and I would buy a treat with the change. Off I'd go with my red wagon.
You used the change? Ooh, man.
Oh no, yeah, I had to bring back the change too.
Mm-hmm.
Bob says no, it was everywhere. Both parents at work. Kid comes home from school, has to be able to get in the house. LOL. Can't have 4 kids tearing up the neighbor's crap until 6 p.m. LOL. Yep. John says, by that argument given, should there be a clearer definitions between all ages comics and kids comics? I think that line is overly blurred
I agree.
in a lot of aspects.
I think so. Because it's like the first thing that people ask me at a convention is this for kids? And the funny thing is that usually I don't know what that means, because it's like there is a very blurry definition. It's like, okay, they're asking me what's for kids, but are they really asking me what's for their kid?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's clear definitions as to what these phrases mean, oh yeah, that would be completely different. Like,
and I apologize, we never really formally introduced you, especially to our radio audience. So they're like going, what kind of book does she do?
Oh, well, all sorts, but it's like, hello, my name is Daphne Lage, and I'm the artist of the funny animal fantasy comic Tall Tales, written by J.D. Calderon, who everyone in the room has met already.
But how long have you been doing Tall Tales?
Oh, I've been drawing that book since the mid '80s.
And you have the first 20 issues available.
The first 20 issues online for free, so you can check it out at talltalesonline.com.
Go ahead now.
Yes. Yeah, but the definition of, I think that there really should be comics that are specifically defined for children, just like there should be comics, or just because like you go to a bookstore and that's exactly how they define everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't understand why comic books can't be like that either. Like if I go to a Barnes and Noble and I go to the children's section, they have them sorted out by age. I mean, that's how specific they get. So you know exactly what you're getting into. But it's like, you know, like say at a convention, oh, is this for kids? Well, my book is for mostly 13 and up, and it's a fantasy adventure. And it's like if Disney did Lord of the Rings. So if they like if you let them watch Lord of the Rings, you can pretty much give them this book. But then it's like, even then I can still kind of like seeing them going, I don't know, still trying to gauge it.
Mm-hmm.
But there should be very specific, like, I mean, I think like the Japanese even take it further by even like going, okay, this book is for young boys, and this one specifically for older boys, and this book is for younger girls, and this one is for older girls, and then maybe eventually everything mashes together at the top. But like there's like real specificity in
audience and their aims.
In the audience and the content. Yeah.
Or here in the States anymore, you hear the term all ages and you're automatically thinking kids literature.
Right.
And I've had that problem for many years, especially at the shows. Why do an all ages comics? Oh, well then it's written for kids.
Right. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's written for all ages.
Uh-huh.
Well, all ages includes adults, because there has to be a certain amount of appeal to an adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing. And I don't know that. I mean, how many people don't like Dr. Seuss?
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, an adult can pick it up and appreciate it,
right,
for what it is, and harken back to when they saw it. So that's the thing about what it is that you don't have to worry about grandma falling asleep, showing this comic book to the kid.
Right.
That's what it is. I don't know.
Right.
Steve Farabee says, what didn't kill us made us stronger. It may explain some of the my brother's mental issues.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, Steve. Rob says, all is explained about V now. It all makes sense.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, that HBO messed me up. Having HBO in my room was a game changer.
HBO was like, that was like that formative year experience, because it's like, I remember when we first got HBO, and that was only when they only had like 3 or 4 movies that they kept repeating. So it's like, so my memories are all about Beastmaster, Cannonball Run, History of the World Part 1. Right? It's like, and funnily enough, rock and roll.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy smoke!
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you weren't traumatized by Cindy coming down the chute.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I adore that movie. That is oh, hold on. Wait. Oh, I don't have it. I don't have it with me now. I had something here that I forgot that I changed it. I moved it downstairs in the basement. I'll pick it up later. I'll show it later.
Meredith says, I remember when we first got HBO and heavy metal was going to be on. My father was like, it's a cartoon. First 5 minutes into it, he sent all of us kids to bed.
Heavy metal. You see, that's the reason why rock and roll didn't surprise me, because I had seen heavy metal first. And that was like the first like adult cartoon that I have seen. And it was really, and it's like, it's like it was again another one of these game changer moments where it's like, I didn't know you could do this. I didn't know drawing could do this.
Yeah.
You know?
My father, he allowed me to watch heavy metal. He sat with me, and a few times he giggled.
That's a lot different than your Clockwork Orange experience. You turned to your dad during the taxi sequence and go, Dad, was that a little of the old in out? I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah, I have heavy metal. I one day, I think when my kid is maybe about 12, we'll sit down and watch heavy metal. But but it's gonna be a while before he gets his hands on Cloud.
You know what's funny is like, because like all those other scenes, it really didn't like, it kind of like went in one ear and out the other, but I completely imprinted on Tarna.
Well, I can understand that.
Also explains the She-Ra connection.
There you go.
that I was telling you the other day. So it's like that. That heavy metal changed a lot, and
for me, it was opening weekend at the theater, but I was in high school. So I remember in high school skipping school early in order to go out and watch Wizards. Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, because it was there was only one theater. They only showed it for 1 week. So I ran out, skipped out of school. Only one of the few times I ever skipped out early, and I had my own car back then. During my junior and senior year, because I worked half an hour away and drove back and forth. I snuck out, took the time off of work, and sat in the theater, in the back of the theater, hardly anybody there, and sat and watched Wizards. So because I had to, you know. When it come out, same thing with heavy metal. When heavy metal come out, had to go see it. Absolutely.
It's funny because Bakshi's work was stuff that I didn't appreciate until I was much older. You know, that's the funny thing with Bakshi. Like when I first saw his stuff in the beginning, I was like, well, what is this? This is too weird for me. But then like when I was much older, I saw American Pop again, and it's like, oh, I love this. You know?
Bakshi ran Terry Toons at the end. You know. So he just wanted to do something different.
Right. Yeah. He's one of the main proponents of kids going into their basements and making cartoons on their own. You know, as opposed to, he goes, why do you want to work for Disney? Who wants to work for Disney? Why do you want to make all this effort for someone else? You can do it yourself. Right?
And that's the thing,
the alternative comics market. Yep.
They can do that now.
Very true.
Yeah.
Did you see Steve Farabee's comic?
Right there. I bought heavy metal off the rack when I was about 7. It was a cartoon, so nobody cared. There you go. There's a quick education, just like you watching Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, that was my parents were asleep.
Especially Rocky Horror. That must have really
back to back. It messed me up.
I think it was like heavy metal on one end and Watership Down on the other.
Wow.
You know, it was cable, man. It taught me so much. I remember
says heavy metal was the best. Yep.
I had a hard time watching a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air after watching 6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh wow! Okay. Yeah.
I was in my room. I'm like 9. I'm like, okay, I watched this. It's Will Smith.
That's an epic movie. Yeah.
So cable will mess your kid up.
Yep. That's why they have those parental controls
now.
Kino Subway says Mr. Celestri is a pretty cool dude. Glad to see him on. How can you not like a guy with such a cool mustache?
Oh,
There you go.
geez. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, Kino.
Now,
Randy, I want to, oh, I'm sorry, didn't step over you. Randy, when did you, are you still doing your newspaper?
No, I'm not. I stopped doing that almost a year ago in April.
Oh,
But that's part of the reason why I want to do this show, is because through doing the paper, I very quickly realized that comics are for everybody. They just have to be accessible.
Mhm.
You know, because we ran every kind of comic story through that paper. I got
Yeah.
a copy of it here somewhere.
and John, I want to ask you.
As a Flint Comics paper.
Cool.
I ran through a whole 100 issues on that and had to stop because I couldn't afford to take the money out of the savings anymore to afford.
oh,
the
geez,
print
yeah.
run. That and being in the Flint area, it's still a format that I love, but being in the Flint area, our advertising got really sparse when the water situation happened. All of the mom and pop businesses just were struggling to survive. So almost as bad as they are again now. So,
And you should know that the paper was free.
yeah, and the paper was free. We were advertiser supported.
Oh,
we
yeah.
we had every kind of comic and comic strip in there that I could find that I thought was quality. So we had a couple of local. We had a local single panel cartoonist who's been syndicated all through the world. He gave me a big stack of his stuff. Just run it. You know, he
Okay.
said we got Matt Fazell's Cynical Man. We got Kurt Kulka's The Cardinal. Running through there, a bunch of syndicated strips, a bunch of a few public domain stuff, things, and then I ran comic stories through there as often as I could.
It's kind of funny also that people forget too that comic strips are usually the entry point
Yeah,
that a lot of kids and a lot of people get into, and the less now that newspapers, like, that's the first thing they cut. So I mean, if people read newspapers anymore, so
Well, that was the case.
Yeah.
I sent you a Randy. Remember, I sent you a comparison between the New York Times today and what the old Wall Street comics were.
Yep.
But I mean, with I got to put it up somewhere, on the Facebook page or something. You can see the comparison. I mean, the physical comparisons.
Like,
And
I
that's the
think like
thing.
even the size was huge.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying, is that talking about the eyes, it's like, it's what, 11 and a half, 10 and a half by, by maybe about 17 or 18. Yeah.
the old newspaper pages used to be huge.
Yeah.
When the comic strips were printed all,
Yeah.
usually all in one page daily.
Yep.
So the strips were huge.
Yep.
So you could really, they're truly an art form, and maybe we'll devote some time in future Sunday Funnies episodes to comic strips. But I could talk about that all day too. I have a large bookcase filled with nothing but comic strip reprints.
Yeah, because like I can't imagine like that's part of what like developed my art brain was, like reading Peanuts, reading Mama, reading BC, right? Reading, Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes and Bloom County. I mean, this was the entry point.
Yeah.
This was the real entry point.
Yep.
They would give me back when I was a kid, I did a lot of modeling. So when the paper would come, my mother wanted to sell paper so she could see if I was in them. And usually, she'd find me in there somewhere and cut it out and put in this portfolio that I have. But they would hand me the movie theater section, because I love that for some reason, because it also had posters, and the comics. And they were huge. And I remember getting the paper off the porch or having to go to the store for them and get the paper, and it having some heft. And because if she knew I was in the paper, she'd want, 3 and 4 copies of it. So that had some heft to it. I went to the store. I was in the drugstore, and I seen the Sunday paper, and I figured, I'll pick it up. And I picked up this pamphlet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? Like, is this the whole thing? And
why does it cost 10 times as much?
Yeah. It's more. And apparently the only time they sell a paper now is during Black Friday.
Right, because
Yeah.
of all the ads. Yeah, sure.
And
The
they're
only
screwed
time you
this
see
year.
how thick the old papers used to be too is
Yeah.
during. Yeah.
They're screwed this year, by the way. So
Yeah. Well, so's it. So
Yeah.
we're not going to talk negative on this
No,
show.
no,
Again,
no,
let's not.
no,
let's
no,
not
no.
go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We only have about 10 minutes left, believe it or not, for the
Wow,
program.
okay.
So we should probably go around one last time and tell everybody where they can find you. So I hate to cut the conversation short because we could talk for hours,
Yeah.
but we do want to cut this in just under 2 hours, just to appease YouTube and Facebook and all that. Right, V.
Yeah. We have to. Be taught how
Before
to
we
say
go,
goodbye.
Keno says hello to everybody.
Hello.
Oh,
Pop says heavy metal was the best, and Joe McPhee says no more Sunday newspaper. Miss the old Spider-Man, Superman, Garfield, Merryworth, and Beetle Bailey strips. There was so many great strips out there, and something that I found when I was doing the paper, I was getting old reprints strips.
Right.
Like the old original James Bond strip, which I had
I
to edit
no idea.
because they were so they were over in England. They have completely different
Oh, yeah,
standards
yeah.
than what they have here in the States. So I would have to go through and darken in all of the bikini lines and all the G-string lines just so I didn't have an angry mom come at me.
Yeah.
But we also ran old Mutt and Jeff
yeah.
strips from the 20s. And it's
Wow.
like once you start reading that, you go, oh, yeah, this is as topical now
Yeah,
as it was
that's-
back then. There was a couple of guys out there looking for work and looking to go out on dates. That was the whole gist of Mutt and Jeff, and everybody could associate with it.
That's that. Right. Yeah. That's that universal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're universal themes. They were timeless,
Yep.
And,
Evergreen. It's
Yeah.
evergreen
Yep.
material.
all of the strips that we ran like that, there was very few, and I picked up a whole reprint package from King Features, so I was running old Flash Gordons, and
Oh, nice.
we were running Prince Valiants, and Prince Valiant is intentionally timeless. So, but it's just really classic stuff.
Right, yeah.
And nowadays, you're lucky if you see Prince Valiant in the newspaper, it's 2 strips. And though Tom Yates is doing some great work, it just doesn't match the stuff that Foster was doing.
You just don't have the canvas to
Yeah.
work with.
Exactly. Yeah. If you go to a museum, if you're lucky, and you catch a comic strip exhibit at a museum, you see those old Prince Valiants. They're like 2 up,
They make you
2
cry.
up from the
Yep.
from the newspaper side.
Yeah,
They're just
they
beautiful.
really do. They make you cry.
Yeah.
But it's like what you had said in the beginning. That's like how you had to, like, animation. You have to draw thinking about how it's going to look like on a big screen. And this is the opposite. These were pieces made specifically for large pages, and now you're shrinking them down to like.
Yeah, you just cannot do anything with it.
Yeah. But back then they were so lucky. Even though they were drawing so high up, they had to photographically shrink all of that down in order to make the plates for the paper. But
Right.
just crazy the size that they
Right.
worked off of. Steve Farabee says, "Thank you, John. Really enjoyed your insights."
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
And we want to thank both you and Daphne for coming on today.
Oh, it was fun.
Thank
Taking
you.
part
I
of your
enjoyed
Sunday
it.
morning. Appreciate you very much.
Like I said, I can listen to John's stories all day. So
Yeah.
it's like-
And we'll have him back on real soon, and especially back on when his campaign is running, and that starts up in the 1st of April, or
Right.
not April,
No,
September. I'm sorry.
yeah,
It seems like April because this year it just seems
yeah.
one big blank. John, let people know where they can find you.
You can find me at John the Animator on YouTube here. For my Indiegogo campaign, just so John the Animator Comics. You just check that out for the just type in for the preview page. And then John Celestri at .blogspot.com. That's information, free stuff, and I'm on Twitter at Celestri John, and I'm here on Facebook, John Celestri. I try to keep it real simple.
yeah.
Yeah. You have to. It's simpler, the easier for folks to find
Yeah.
you. And again, Daphne, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to have you back on
Uh-huh.
this program sometime real soon.
Sure.
And get into details with Tall Tales.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Love to do
JD,
it.
if we can get him up out of bed. early
Yeah,
enough.
exactly. Yeah,
To talk
either
about
up out
Oswald
of bed
Chronicles.
or if
Yeah.
it's day off.
Yeah. Okay. Let folks know where they can get a hold of you, Daphne.
Okay, so if you like funny animal fantasy, if that's your thing, you can check out the first 20 issues of Tall Tales for free at talltalesonline.com. And if you're into art tutorials, demos, art live streams, I also have a YouTube channel at daphneLageArt.com.
And you can hear more of her parrot making,
Yes, exactly.
making smoke detector noises there
Yes,
as
yes.
well.
You do
Yeah.
not need to change your batteries. Yes.
Varian, where can they find you?
KYD_V on Twitter. Varian Grant everywhere else on Facebook. My personal website for my art on it is whenweriot.com. I swear I bought that 3 years ago. It's not topical at all. whenweriot.com. Lastcallcomics.com is the publishing company I co-own with my wife. Lastcallcomics.com. There's you can find all the social media links there. Or type in Last Call Comics on, in Facebook, you'll find us, as well as IndieVolt and IndieVolt.com. Check us out. IndieVolt TV, IndieVolt Radio. We're here for you to bring you the best in indie entertainment.
IndieVolt Radio is available at the Streama app. You can find the app at Google Play. If you ask Alexa nicely, she can hook you up with IndieVolt.com. Also, the Roku channel, IndieVolt TV, over there. And we are always looking for your input at IndieVolt Live at IndieVolt.com. Please let us know about the show today. If you have a chance to listen, let us know what kind of topics you want us to cover here on the Sunday Funnies. Please include IndieVolt Live in the subject when you email it in, and please keep those emails to 90 words or less. And we also do the IndieVolt podcast on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. and the IndieVolt Breakfast Buzz at Thursdays at 9 a.m. when we bring in all sorts of special guests and talk about the comic market, usually the indie and the alternative market. Rob Anderson is also part of our channel, and he does the Indie Advocate show that's on Saturday nights that also runs at 9 p.m. All of those times are Eastern Standard Times, so please adjust your listening ear accordingly. And feel free to send in any type of response about our shows there to IndieVolt Live at IndieVolt.com. No question is too serious. No question is too stupid. Because remember, our feedback will be better because of your setback. Hashtag get an education. Hashtag IndieVolt. We hope everybody enjoyed themselves today. I hope they had everybody had a good time listening. We are grateful for you listening in. And Varian, do you have any radio numbers?
42.
42. Was that the high point?
Yeah, it was.
We have an entire 42 people. No, not really.
No.
It's 42,000 people listening today at IndieVolt Radio. We appreciate you all. And remember, we will be here again at this time on Sundays, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Times for the Sunday Funnies. Thanks again for listening. And we're going to go out the same way we came in because I did not make an outro. So here we go. And again, Daphne and John, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being a part of the program. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
We'll
and
see you soon.
exit stage left.